Alright, so this is my review of the movie Smoke Signals. Now, Smoke Signals is an indie film as well as a drama and comedy film that was directed and co produced by Chris Irie back in 1998. Some of the prominent stars in this film include Adam Beach, who played Victor, Evan Adams, who played Thomas, Irene Bedard, who played Susie, and Gary Farmer, who played Arnold. Now, this movie is about two Coeur d'Alene Native Americans named Victor and Thomas, and they embark on a journey from their reservation in Idaho to Arizona. Now, when Thomas was an infant, there was a fire in his house that killed both of his parents, and his parents threw Thomas out the window as a last ditch effort to save his life, and Thomas ended up being saved by Arnold, Victor's father. Now, after the fire, Arnold descended into a cycle of alcoholism that led to him abusing Victor and his mother. And eventually, Arnold ended up abandoning his family, abandoning Victor and his mother when Victor was a child. Now, this movie's set when Victor and Thomas are now young adults, and now Victor found out that his father had passed away in Arizona. Now, Victor and Thomas both go to Arizona to retrieve his ashes, and in doing so, Victor must face the tumultuous history that exists between him and his father, all the years of abuse and the years of trauma. Now, some highlights of the movie. I'd say the best actor in this movie was Evan Adams, the one who played Thomas. And the reason why is because Thomas really felt like a genuine character to me. Like, Thomas felt like he truly was that kid who was not very popular and who just wanted friends, who just wanted Victor as a friend. And Evan Adams, through his acting, really conveyed this sense, and it resonated with me that Thomas, as his name suggests, was just good company. He just wanted to be Victor's friend, just wanted to support him. And it was reflected in the movie very well by Evan Adams. Evan Adams did a very good job acting and playing that role. Yeah. So another good thing about the movie, the things that I liked about the movie was that it conveys a very good message and it accomplishes what it's trying to do. It accomplishes what it's trying to do very well due to the fact that it conveys the message that forgiveness is necessary. And I'd say that's a very good message due to the fact that when you don't forgive someone, um, a part of the resentment that you have stays with you, and that stays with you for as long as you choose not to forgive them, and that resentment can have a very large effect on your mental health. It can have an effect, and it can start conflict. I feel like a lot of the problems in the world, a lot of the hate, stem from the fact that we can't forgive each other. Like, we can't forgive actions in that were done in the past. Like, on a large scale, that leads to wars. On a smaller scale, that leads to conflict between people. And I feel that people, if they had a better ability to forgive each other, the world would be a much more peaceful place. So I believe that's a very good message. And in addition to that, I liked Susie as a character due to the fact that Susie to me seems more like an optimist in the sense that she always tries to see the bright side of people despite the actions that they may do that are negative. Like, for example, Susie saw the bright side of Arnold despite all the past actions that he did, all the abuse and the fact that he abandoned his family and all of that. Susie, despite all of that, saw that Arnold was actually a good person on the inside and just, maybe was led astray. And I feel like if people saw each other that way, if people were able to see that despite one's actions, one is like a good person, it would be easier to forgive people. And I feel like that's a character trait that's very, very valuable to have. Now, something that I didn't like about the movie was, to me, the premise of the movie seems very generic. Like a lot of movies have encapsulated the idea of somebody's father somebody's father abusing someone, and then a person having to come to terms with that and accept it and move on. I feel like a lot of movies and TV shows have covered that topic. Like the movie Fences also covered pretty much the same theme. So it's difficult for this movie to stand out. And another thing about the movie that I didn't really like is that this movie is the first movie with an all Native American cast, all produced by Native Americans, and yet it doesn't really seem like a Native American movie. It seems like a movie that doesn't really convey the culture of Native Americans and the com- and the experiences that Native Americans have had in this country. It doesn't really convey that. Like there are some hints to that, like when on like in the scene where um, Victor and Thomas lose their seats on the bus to two white Americans who refuse to give them their seats back, and they're very hostile and derogatory towards them. There are small, subtle hints of it, but it's not really explored on a much greater scale. And I feel like since this is an all Native American movie, everything from the script to the actors is Native American, I feel like they could have capitalized on this a lot more and incorporated a lot more Native American perspectives into the movie. Like, I didn't really learn much about the movie from about Native Americans from just watching the movie that I didn't already know before the movie. Like I didn't learn about like Native American traditions, the powwows. I didn't learn about really anything that I didn't already know prior to watching the movie about Native American culture or experiences. And I would have loved to learn a lot more about that because I I don't really interact with Native Americans much in real life, and so it would have been nice to see that perspective, that new perspective shown in a movie such as this with an all Native American cast, especially the first movie with an all Native American cast. And I feel that this movie doesn't really do that justice. Right. So, I'd give this movie a 3 out of 5 stars just because of the fact that it was a good movie. It was a very good movie. However, it could have been better. It could have been better if, it's good in the sense that it conveys the message that it aimed to. However, I would have liked it a lot more if there was more aspects of Native American culture and traditions in the movie. Like if I left the movie knowing a lot more about things like powwows, about things like Native American experiences on the reservation, because honestly, that's what I thought the movie was going to be about. And I kind of felt disappointed that it really wasn't about that. So, if I had learned more about that, I'd say that this movie would have gotten a much higher rating, maybe even like a 5 out of 5, because I would have learned something and a new perspective that really isn't explored in film. Alright, so the movie is PG 13, and I'd say it's a good movie overall. It's not bad by any means, it conveys the message that's trying to. It's a good movie, it's a very wholesome movie, and it helps to understand. It conveys a very powerful message that a lot of people may forget, the message of forgiveness and how forgiveness is necessary to move on and to accept what happened in the past and move forward to a better future. And so that's important. Now, when it comes to the filmmaking of the movie and how the movie was filmed. I'd say the movie was filmed in a way in which you'd had certain parts of the movie where the movie would jump from scenes in Victor's youth to scenes of Victor as an adult. And I feel like that's a very good way of filming the movie, especially in the beginning half, it was more like that. I feel like that's a good way of showing a synopsis of what happened in Victor's life that provides a lot of context for the events that are happening in the movie and how Victor had a, how Victor harbored that resentment and the memories that Victor had of his father, because showing scenes embedded within the movie allowed us as the audience to really see what Victor was thinking. It was like a visual way of seeing what was going on inside Victor's head. And it provides a contrast to what Thomas's thoughts. Um, and there was like a scene about like how what Thomas a memory that Thomas was remembering about how Arnold, Victor's father, supported him and how Arnold took him to like breakfast. And that scene really provides a good contrast between um, Victor and the way he thought about his father, as well as Arnold. And one last note, um, this movie did a very good job in encapsulating the transition that Victor um, had between the beginning and the end of the movie. At the beginning of the movie, Victor was very irritable, as you could see with the way Victor reacted to Thomas's constant telling of stories. Victor was very irritated about that. Victor was upset, and he always felt like he was on edge and felt like he had to like keep a face that tried to hide his persona. However, by the end of the movie, Victor is very visibly more open. Victor, at the end of the movie, Victor allows Thomas to tell his stories without even interrupting once. And that really shows how Victor has overcome the trauma that he was facing at the beginning of the movie and how has become a more open person that has now accepted what has happened in the past and is able to move forward. Now, as I said earlier, overall, this is a very good movie. It's a great movie for what it's trying to convey. It's a it has a very good message. However, it could have been improved upon.